Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Alien Protocols. When we discuss UFOs, the technology behind UFOs, we almost without fail are gravitated, so to speak, to the propulsion and anti-gravity systems and even the camouflage systems. But we rarely discuss the other practicalities that are needed, required for craft that display the type of things that we have seen. So think about this extra stuff for a moment, and I think it's an important thought to have and thought to explore. This is a picture a while ago when we did the episode about how do UFOs affect everything from turning off tractors. There's numerous examples of that, to affecting satellites, which is not discussed, but is true. 2 satellites that I know of have been affected by, they believe, advanced aerial vehicles. Jet fighters, case after case after case, from the famous Peru case with a general who opened fire on the light bulb looking thing, and the bullets basically were absorbed by it. And it took the hostile attack, and instead of responding in kind, it deactivated his weapon system only, and then turned the other cheek and left. The same thing is true in Iran, the famous Iran case with General Jafari. Same thing. They tried to lock on their weapon systems, shut off the weapon systems, actually disassembled the weapon system. Of course, that happened at the Nimitz incident. Time after time, Peru, Belgium, France, U.S., time and time again, they have the ability to do that. But you have to wonder, why are they choosing to take such a passive role? And what are the other options such a powerful craft would have available to it? And when you think about it, too, they have the ability to affect highly shielded nuclear weapons. And not only the weapons, but the control centers that are incredibly well shielded underground. So we know there's some other physics going on here that we don't completely have a grasp of. And you guys know on this channel that we believe a lot of the what's called paranormal phenomena actually is all connected, and we've discussed how, and it's actually a field. And just like Volta discovered the electromagnetic field 200 years ago from uniting a bunch of weird, what they considered at the time, paranormal phenomena. There was a doctor who took 2 different pieces of metal and put them on the leg of a frog. And the frog's leg jumped. It was dead, a dead frog. And so he tried to prove that this was spirit energy. But Volta proved that it was electricity. The same thing that happened from the torpedo fish, the strange zapping that they were mystified by, which united to the sparks from rugs all the way to lightning. And we had always lived in this electromagnetic field. And in the 200 years since we accepted that reality, just look how much society has changed and improved. Now we come upon another field that has a bunch of other weird phenomena associated with it. It has a limited range of abilities, but it definitely connects to the entire universe, kind of, as if, on an event horizon, it stores all the information of everything that has ever fallen into it. It's as if we're able to access an event horizon and all the information that is stored in this universe. We don't know all the physics. We don't know how or why, but we know empirically it works. The studies have been done for 200 years. Just do a little research and you'll see, and you'll start to understand the parameters. Now, there are other factors besides propulsion and power. Of course, you're going to need incredible amount of computing power, massive amounts of computing power. Now, you don't necessarily have to have communications with other craft. It could be so well pre-programmed, all the alternatives and options could be pre-programmed into the craft, so it may not need active computing. But I would believe that it would have active computing and would be alive, and that the craft itself, the surface of the craft, the metamaterial, has all these different functions built into it. They decide the functions they need, they plus and minus the metals required. Of course, it's not done in specific layers like that. It's based on its interaction of all the different desires of the metals. And part of that would be computing power. So they would have a massive amount of computing power spread across the entire surface of the craft. But you know, they also have to have sensors, right? To be able to detect jet fighters coming from miles away. So the surface of the craft must also act as a sensor of some kind. They might be communicating long-distance gravity waves of some kind. They might have the ability to move an electromagnetic focal point anywhere they want on the surface and utilize some of that energy that they're able to create for gravitation and propulsion and use it as a weapon if they wanted to. One tic-tac, as I said, could probably destroy all of the navies of the world. So it's interesting to think about all the other requirements. You know, the sensor has to be amazing. The sensors on these, the range, the fidelity of them must be absolutely amazing. And we know that there is probably a possibility, a very good possibility, that they have to communicate on occasions with others. So they would be using, maybe long-range gravitational waves. They could be using remember we discussed the gravitational field? They could be using anything from that whole spectrum. And I think it would be really interesting to design some tests to look for some of those. That would be much easier to find than LIGOs. You might also want to build in shape-shifting, and that could be very easily accomplished in the integration of the materials. So I just wanted to share some of those thoughts with you. What other elements do you guys think are required? Do you think intelligence is required? Life is required of the craft? I think so. But that's just my opinion. Well, I love you guys. I also want you to think about some of the other possibilities too. Do all of these craft have drones? Yes, they do. When these drones are born, do they play a little bit at first? Yes, they do. So these computing abilities not only have to be incredibly fast, extraordinarily vast, but the acquisition of all sensory data simultaneously could be just absolutely staggering. So I just wanted to share some of those thoughts with you guys. And let's explore some of these really cool, weird, bizarre aspects of this. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Much love.